Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. To brace for, or bracing for something, is a phrase that means preparing yourself mentally or emotionally for something which is challenging or difficult, something which is expected to happen. When you're flying, you might hear the pilot saying, "Ladies and gentlemen," if you hear the announcement, "brace, brace," then you should immediately take the bracing position. Brace for impact. And I think that means to put your head down towards your knees. It can be used just as a warning for something physical which is about to happen, but it also can be used to prepare you for something mentally, something really challenging. Let's go through a few examples. So, as the storm approached, the residents began bracing themselves for the impact of strong winds. The company's employees were bracing themselves as rumors of restructuring circulated. As the deadline approached, the students were bracing for a long night of study. The athletes were bracing for a grueling training session in anticipation of the final match. Despite their optimism, the farmers were bracing themselves for a poor harvest. Now, you can hear in some of those sentences there, we used the reflexive, bracing themselves. And that is very, very common. You don't need to put it in, but I always think it looks a bit strange without it. In the imperative, you might also hear the word brace yourself. If someone says, "Look, I've got some really bad news, just brace yourself," it means get ready to receive it. And I guess if your boss says that, you should be prepared. Now, speaking of these things, the headlines in our national media today say that our Prime Minister is bracing himself for a backlash. That just means a rebellion, because he's bringing in a new law regarding smoking, and many people don't like it. He wants to stop the next generation from completely buying cigarettes. And he's bracing himself for a backlash. That law is due to be debated, I think, in the next few weeks. His idea is that anyone who's currently 14 years old or younger will never be able to buy cigarettes. So they'll introduce a law making it illegal for people of that generation to buy cigarettes. The way they're going to do it is that they will raise the smoking age by 1 year every year. And so, for example, when that 14-year-old reaches the age of, let's say, 28, smoking will never be a thing for him, because he won't be able to buy cigarettes. But someone who's 30 or 35 will be able to buy cigarettes. It seems very odd, doesn't it? I mean, I can't ever imagine a shop here saying, "Oh, so you want to buy cigarettes? So are you 27 or are you 26? How old are you? Because if we get to a situation where, for example, 30-year-olds can't buy cigarettes, but 31-year-olds can, it just seems a bit weird. We don't have ID cards, so how are we supposed to prove whether we smoke or not and our age? It just seems really strange. It doesn't sound like something that we would be able to enforce in this country, unless, of course, they gave us ID cards. There's also other issues with that. I mean, we are a democratic country, so for a shop to ask everyone who wants cigarettes, so prove to me what your date of birth is, it just sounds a little bit unpleasant, doesn't it? Well, the government is saying that lighting up, that just means smoking, holds a little attraction these days for the public. Oh, really? Well, the government obviously aren't based around here, that's for sure. Although many people have quit, haven't they? And they prefer vaping these days. It seems very odd, though, because did you know that our Parliament building next to Big Ben in London is the only building in the UK where you can smoke inside? So while they're busy stopping us all from smoking for the future, they're happily smoking inside the building. So it sounds a bit hypocritical, doesn't it? Um, and the other thing is as well, this new law only applies to England. So we might get into the situation where you drive north, go over the border into Scotland, buy cigarettes, and then come back with them, or order them online from one of the other four nations. We spoke about that the other day, how laws these days don't cover all of Britain. Although I suppose if they're doing it, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales are probably going to introduce their own laws. Our government always like to act as our mother, telling us, now, you mustn't do this, and taking away our choices. And it seems very strange that they would demonize smoking in a country which has major issues with alcohol and drugs. I mean, Scotland is now the drug death capital of Europe. So it seems bizarre that we would target smoking as the evil of all society when towns in England, like Blackpool, have big issues with addiction. Well, anyway, speaking of backlashes, another thing that's in our media today is that the Victoria and Albert Museum have created a puppet show. Now, a puppet show is when you have those little figures on strings and you move your hand and the puppet moves. It's like a little doll and it has strings and you can make it look like it's walking. Other types of puppets are ones that you can use your hands to put inside it and then move your hand. So they've created a puppet show with a number of dictators from history. Now, you can imagine that wasn't going to be okay with anyone, especially since one of the dictators they're showing is Margaret Thatcher. Now, I'm not going to mention the other two dictators' names, but yeah, over the last, let's say, 100 years, I'm sure you can guess who these dictators are, particularly those focusing on terrorism and genocide. So, what they've done is they've created a puppet show for kids, showing some of the worst people in history, and they have Margaret Thatcher there with two others. Now, that caused major outrage, bearing in mind that our museums are not private, they all have free entry. The government is now questioning whether it should allow taxpayer money to go to something like this. Well, our governments are never very good with art because, of course, they can't see the commercial value. It's something which doesn't easily fit in well to a capitalist mindset, creativity. So it wouldn't surprise me if they try to shut the place down or make it private. That's how they will get their revenge on this museum. Bearing in mind, Margaret Thatcher was a Conservative Prime Minister who currently holds power. Yeah, so we don't know what's going to happen with that, but no doubt there will be an outcome. So they're bracing themselves for the backlash of that. I don't think anybody really cares, to be honest. That's yeah, so they'll be bracing themselves for the reaction of the press and, of course, the government's retaliation or revenge to try to stop these things happening. Well, that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope the meaning of brace or bracing for is very clear. See you all again soon. Bye.